Today we're going to have a look at the difference between aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Now we're going to start with aerobic respiration. Now aerobic refers to air, meaning in the presence of oxygen. Now this can be defined as the chemical reaction in cells that use oxygen to break down nutrient molecules to release energy. Now remember, these nutrient molecules are glucose most of the time, and the energy that's being produced is in the form of ATP. Now this chemical reaction is the complete breakdown of glucose to release a relatively large amount of energy that can be used in cell processes. Now this produces carbon dioxide and water, as well as releasing useful cellular energy. So in this reaction, glucose and oxygen react to produce carbon dioxide and water, and of course ATP. Now we can write this as a balanced chemical equation as well. So glucose is 6 carbons, 12 hydrogens, and 6 oxygens, whereas oxygen would be 6 molecules, and this will produce 6 molecules of carbon dioxide or CO2 and 6 molecules of water or H2O. Now we can have a look at anaerobic respiration. Now an means no and aero means air. So this reaction is in the absence of oxygen. Now this can be defined as the chemical reaction in cells that break down nutrient molecules to release energy without using oxygen. Now in this reaction, glucose is broken down incompletely and it releases only a small amount of energy compared to aerobic respiration. This energy can also be used in cells. Now it produces a different breakdown product depending on the type of organism it's taking place in. So we're going to look at 2 organisms. We're going to look at animals like humans as well as microorganisms like yeast. Let's first have a look at the anaerobic respiration in humans. So here glucose is converted into lactic acid. Now anaerobic respiration mainly takes place in muscle cells during vigorous exercise. So when we exercise vigorously, our muscles have a higher demand for energy than when we are resting or exercising normally. Our bodies can only deliver so much oxygen to our muscle cells for aerobic respiration. This is because we need to inhale the air for oxygen, and our lungs can only inhale and exhale that quickly. So in this instance, as much glucose as possible is broken down with oxygen, and then the rest of the glucose is broken down without it, producing lactic acid instead. Now, lactic acid still has some energy stored in its bonds that the cell could use. So for this reason, less energy is released when glucose is broken down anaerobically. So this causes an oxygen debt. So this is when lactic acid builds up in muscle cells. When this happens, it lowers the pH of the cells, making them more acidic. Now this could denature the enzymes in cells, so we need to remove this lactic acid. Now cells excrete lactic acid into the blood. Now when blood passes through the liver, lactic acid is broken up in liver cells where it's oxidized, producing carbon dioxide and water. Now lactic acid reacts with oxygen. This is actually like aerobic respiration, with lactic acid as the nutrient molecule instead of glucose. So the waste product of lactic acid oxidation is carbon dioxide and water, exactly the same as in aerobic respiration. This is the reason why we continue to breathe heavily and our heart rate remains high even after finishing vigorous exercise. This is because we need to transport the lactic acid from our muscles to the liver and continue getting larger amounts of oxygen into the blood to oxidize this lactic acid. Now this is known as repaying the oxygen debt. Then we have anaerobic respiration in yeast. Now this is when glucose is converted to alcohol and carbon dioxide. Now we can also write the chemical balance equation for this. We know glucose has 6 carbons, 12 hydrogens and 6 oxygens, and this produces 2 molecules of alcohol, which contains 2 carbons, 5 hydrogens and a hydroxyl group. And then it also produces 2 carbon dioxide molecules that we know is 1 carbon and 2 oxygen. Now we take advantage of the products of anaerobic respiration yeast by using it firstly in bread making. So here the carbon dioxide that's being produced causes the dough in bread to rise. Then we can also use the alcohol as well as the carbon dioxide in brewing. So the ethanol that's being produced gives the beer its alcoholic nature, and the carbon dioxide that's being produced gives beer its fizz.